Welcome to my equipment guide for the Diraqine set. Diraqine, if you know how to pronounce this thing, please let me know. This is a set that revolves around blinding your opponent and giving you bonuses when the opponent is blinded. Now, there is one purple spell that can inflict blind, which is Darkness. Darkness has a base chance of 25%, and then it increases depending on your spellbook level. Here my spellbook for this test character is only level 10, so at level 50 spellbook, the chance to blind is 75%. However, the color that has the most spells and possibilities to blind is yellow. There are multiple ways to blind with yellow, and there are multiple ways to take advantage of that blinded status, for example with the jeweled gauntlets that increases the damage you deal to blinded enemies. So let's talk about where can you find this set. This set cannot be crafted. If you go here and check with your crafter, select the set, and you'll see that you cannot craft it. It can currently only be found in Season 2.3, Watchers in the Stars. This is where you can find the different pieces of equipment. And currently there are no variant of the set. Is only the base set that can be found here. So let's talk about the set bonuses. For the 2 set bonus, when applying blind on the enemy, heal for 2% of max health. It's not a lot of health regeneration or healing, but it's just by applying blind, and there are so many ways to apply blind that probably you can trigger this 2, maybe 3 times every turn. So having a bit of passive healing is always good. For the 4 set pieces, when dealing light damage, heal for 2% of the damage done. Now, this is very good if you're playing a mono elemental build, mono yellow elemental build, obviously, because it has to be light damage. And the more spells that you have that deal light damage, the more healing you will get. However, for the healing, generally speaking, you want to rely, your defense wants to rely more on your armor and resistance, and even better, just your armor with physical hits. If you get hit on your HP, you're usually in trouble, because it means that either your armor or your resistance has been depleted, or you are getting attacked with an elven bow in PvP, which most of the time will kill you outright. So yeah, healing is nice, but it's unless you heavily invest in vitality, which means that you are not investing in other attributes or in other places in the Citadel, it's not that good. And finally, for the full set, we have increased effectiveness of blind to 66%. So I haven't tested exactly what they mean. I guess what they mean is standard blind will halve the damage you deal with physical attacks. In this case, it will decrease the damage received down to 1/3 instead of half. That's what I think it means by increasing it to 66%, because I assume it's 66.67%, so 1/3 instead of half. Interesting, but you have to commit to the full set, all 6 pieces of equipment, and it's not that big of a difference, honestly. Half physical damage is great. Just going down to 1/3, I don't think it justifies having to use the full set. Next, let's talk about each one of the individual pieces. Let's start with the boots, which in my opinion are the best piece of equipment in this set. When matching yellow gems, this one is only legendary, at mythical rarity is 7. When matching 7 yellow gems, blind the enemy for 2 turns. This is excellent because it gives you a chance to blind the enemy on your first turn. With spells, you can blind your opponent in the second turn, unless you're playing a a spell rush event, which is the exception to that rule. But otherwise, or you're playing events and spending essences to charge your spells. But generally speaking, you have no way to blind the enemy on round 1. Another way to blind the enemy on round 1 is to wear the full jeweled set. Let me find it right here. If you're wearing all 6 pieces of equipment, you will inflict blind on the enemy when matching 5 or more yellow gems. But again, you have to commit to all 6 pieces of equipment. With this one, it's just the boots. If you can get 7 in a row on round 1, you're blinding the enemy. And then that first hit from your enemy, which is always, again, unless you're playing a spell rush event, is always going to be a physical attack, is going to be only half the damage. So excellent piece of equipment if you want to use this set and if you want to use the blind mechanic. Next, the pants. If the enemy is blind, deal extra damage. This one is rare. So if you're using the mythical ones, is an additional 25%. Extra damage to armor and resistance. 25% extra damage is pretty good, but you're only going to use one of the two. Generally speaking, you're either using a physical build or a elemental build, and it's only to armor and resistance. It's not the full damage through. And you also have other pants like the jeweled pants that if you're playing yellow, these ones are legendary, will increase your armor when matching yellow gems. So yeah, interesting. Again, if you're using blind, can be powerful, but not very good considering the other options. Next is the Diraqine chest. At the start of the turn, if I am blind, gain armor. Okay, so this can be useful, but is very niche. Against, for example, the Kingdom Dragon, there are 5 different dragons that rotate, each one of one color, and the yellow dragon can inflict blind on you. Also, if you're playing events, some events have, for example, this one. There is, when attacking, there is a 50% chance to inflict blind, which is an enemy buff. So when the enemies hit you, they can inflict blind. Or there is another one that when you match, not this one, when you match yellow gems, you inflict blind on yourself. Is not here either. These events have 3 random modifiers for each one of them, so sometimes it pops up. So it can be useful there. And obviously, if you're playing a yellow restricted tourney, it's pretty common for your opponents to inflict blind of you because they are going to use also a yellow build. So this chess piece can be very useful for those occasions. However, generally speaking, well, it has to compete with the jewel breastplate, which is another piece of equipment from the jeweled set, which is also very good for yellow builds. And this one will increase your light damage resistance. So I would say it's better if in those occasions when you're facing yellow opponents. And it also has to compete, I believe, the other set. Where are you? Let me see. The Lightbringer set also has a chess piece. Yes. When you match skulls, a chance to gain haste. And also, if you want to use the two Ancient Dragon set to increase your uh, gems of your color every turn, and if you're playing yellow, it really helps. It has to compete with the Mirror of the Forgotten, which is Sunswept, which has the property of creating yellow gems when making a column. So yeah, in a vacuum, the Diraqine chest, I don't know how to pronounce it, honestly. I think I've said it in 20 different ways in this video. But in comparison, excuse me, in a vacuum, yeah, it sounds good, but in comparison of all the other set pieces that you can use with yellow builds, I don't think it's that good. Next, the belt. When matching yellow gems, there is a 35% chance to gain 5% power, double the power gain if the enemy is blind. Again, 5% or 10% power gain sounds very good on paper, but it's only a 35% chance. Personally, if you're playing a physical yellow build, I think it's better to use some skull generators like the Escar Bandolier, because there are no yellow spells to generate skulls. You depend completely on your equipment. So yeah, I think it's better to use something like that. And if you're using an elemental yellow build, I would say that the Trarch belt is going to be better. It will increase your power by 12%. With this one, yeah, maybe you're lucky, and if the enemy is blinded, it's going to be 10%, but it's only 35% chance. So I don't know. Interesting. If you're using an elemental build. For a physical build, I will say no. The shield. When receiving damage, there is a percentage chance. This one is only legendary. So if we go to the mythical one, is 25% chance. Now, there aren't that many good shields, but again, like before, this is another uh, slot that has to compete with the jeweled set. The jeweled tower is a pretty good piece of equipment, a bit unreliable because you need to block, and the yellow gems will be generated on your opponent's turn when you block instead of your turn. So there is a possibility that these yellow gems will be wasted during the opponent's turn. And also for the other set, which is the Lightbringer, that when taking damage, there is a chance to blind the enemy. And for this one, as you can see, this is also Sandswept, so it also has the property of generating extra yellow gems when making a column. So in PvE, I don't think it's that useful. However, in PvP, this is very, very annoying. Unless the opponent is capable of killing you with one hit, uh, having reflect is going to annoy your opponent. It's not going to make you win more fights on defense, but it's definitely going to make the opponent pretty angry at you, because that reflect damage is going to probably affect their hit points, and that will generate less points for them if they are trying to climb up the leaderboard. So yeah, very annoying piece of equipment, but the usefulness, in my opinion, is not that good. And finally, the scimitar. If the enemy is blind, add 18% to the elemental damage. This is ice because this one is blue, but if we change it to yellow, it will be an additional 18% light damage. Well, in fact, let's do it. Now, this sounds very good on paper. It's similar to the damage from the Elven Bow. The difference, obviously, is that the Elven Bow is deals damage directly to your hit points, unless, unlike this one. Uh, okay, I have to unequip it first. Sorry, I always forget that little detail. And I cannot unequip it. Okay, okay. So, as I was saying, 18% sounds very good on paper. Unfortunately, it's only for elemental damage. So if you're using a physical build, it's not very good. For a physical build, again, for yellow builds that have no skull generation with spells, I recommend the maximum skull generation you can get from your equipment and um, the Esgard flail, which is the weapon, will generate more skulls. So I think it's better to use that weapon instead. Okay, let's put it back. Where are you? Right here. Okay, now this looks better. So yeah, if you're using a physical build, you may want a Bloodfang Twin Blade for the extra critical hit chance, or a Firewalker Spear for the extra crit damage, or the Esgard Flail for the, I think is this one? No, this is the Runic Mace. Yeah, this one. The Esgard Flail for the extra Skull Gem generation, or even the all-purpose runic mace to add your a percentage of your mastery to your power if you're using a physical build. Now, if you're using an elemental build, again, I think the runic mace is superior to the Diraqine scimitar. When you start, the Diraqine scimitar might be better because your mastery is not going to be very high. But if you're near the well, late game, let me show you with my shaman. My shaman right now, if we go into a random fight, let's load up. Let's check the stats. If we go down here, I have over 10,000 blue mastery with her. Now, this character is obviously pretty advanced. I have good equipment. So this is what I consider the start of the late game. Most of the pieces of equipment are close to maxed out. My scrolls are a pretty good place, 47, 50, 50. And my blue spells, they still there is a lot to increase, but as you can see, I have the lowest ones are on epic. I have all spells unlocked, and I have a couple legendaries and a couple mythical ones. So 10,000 mastery is achievable at late mid game, start of the late uh, game. And with that, with the runic mace, as I said, is a 25% bonus. So it's going to increase your power by 2,500, which is going to be considerably higher than the 18% from the Diraqine scimitar. However, for any elemental build that can generate lots of gems, obviously the best weapon is the Dragon King Axe. Problem with the Dragon King Axe is that it's very rare, so it takes a very long time or a lot of resources in ancient coins to max it out. That's why the runic mace is also a pretty good option. However, if you watch my video on the Lightbringer set, the other option that you have when you play a yellow build is to use the Lightbringer symbol. This one is only rare, but if you have it at mythical rarity, it will increase all your masteries by 1.5% for each yellow gem on the board. If you have 10,000 mastery and there are 30 yellow gems on the board, that's an additional 45%. So 4,500 additional mastery. And that 4,500 also feeds back the runic mace and further increases your power. So, especially for a yellow build, I will say that using the runic mace together with the Lightbringer symbol for an elemental build is going to make you deal way more damage than just the 18% from the Diraqine scimitar. You could also potentially, if you have a purple one, use it with a purple build, like I said at the start of the video, with the spell Darkness. But again, if I'm playing an elemental dark build, such as the Nightblade Assassin or the Dark Firebolt Warlock, just use a dark runic mace or a dark Dragon King X, honestly. I don't see this 18% additional damage being as good as the other options. And that is my video about this set that I can't pronounce. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment, subscribe, and thank you very much for watching.